when Shalu, you reached out to me a couple of months ago, you've been asking me for some time, like, Judy, I want you to share your testimony. And I'm like, why is Shalu asking me to share my testimony? And I haven't shared my testimony as such in a public forum. I think I've shared it once in a youth camp, but not in a youth forum. And it's so interesting, the message. We didn't speak about my testimony I'm going to share, but the message you put out there, that, turning our mess into message, turning our test into testimony. So that is so relevant in what I'll be sharing as well. So today I'm not just sharing my testimony. I want this to be an invitation to a story. A story not of perfection, but of purpose. And not of flawless steps, but of faithful ones. So my journey starts in Bahrain, a small island. I'm sure we have some NRIs here. You'll know where it is. Just imagine moms in the room, you have your child, and the first news, the day you gave birth, the first news you hear from the doctor is your child will not walk. So just imagine as a parent, right? Forget mom. As a parent, the first news you're hearing is, already you have a 1.5-year-old son, and you're hearing the story, hearing this news. What would it do to a parent? Right? That was the first initial news. So moving on to the next slide. So it's about broken steps. So I was born with bow leg. So you can see on the photo there, bow legs. It is not a very common, you could say, feature, but it is quite common within Asians. So Asians, the doctors were saying, and normally it is very painstaking process, but this is because my parents had the privilege to afford, and this was in my mom's hospital as well. So they could afford to do a surgery with me. So the moment I took my first steps, they were very different, very difficult. Because doctor said, your son will never be able to walk properly. So they want, you will have to have braces, you will have to have surgeries, you will have to have therapies, and a life of uncertainty. And imagine as a child growing up, you are sitting at home with braces on, and you see all those children out in the playground playing, and I'm like, I'm never going to be normal. I'm always going to be different. So this is the journey that I'm running, that I won't be that kid playing in the swings. I won't be that kid, that I can't just be a normal child. So, and I would be the one limping every time. Just imagine, every time you go, you'll be the one limping, and hoping that nobody will notice that that nobody will notice your limp. But here's what the doctors didn't see. That God wasn't just healing my legs, He was writing a message. One I would carry through life. Not with perfect strides, but with purposeful ones. So that's the struggle that I thought I'll be sharing. So growing up with that condition, it wasn't just physically painful, it was very emotionally and spiritually confusing. Because you think about, why me, God? Why this body? And why this delay? Why this delay in speed? Like, why can't I just be catching up to everybody else? So there were many surgeries. So the interesting fact, I had this surgery when I was like 6 months old. There was where they keep all the utensils and, distilled water, so it's quite hot. So that hot water fell on my knee while the surgery was happening. And what did the doctors do? Of the hospital which my mom was a nurse, they actually covered it up with cast. What you should not be doing is what the doctors did. So my mom is having this child with the cast, and then after a few months, removes the cast, and there's a huge, so that is my, that scar on my right knee is what I have. And with my mom, she was like, in love, right? Where do you go? Who do you ask? So those were the challenges and the struggles that I had to go. But the real pain was watching others run while I walked, pretending I wasn't hurting when I was. So I always used to wear long pants where kids, love wear shorts. I used to wear long pants so that nobody would see my braces and praying silently. Lord, if you are real, why does healing feel so slow? And yet through it all, God wasn't absent. He was there, weaving purpose into every broken step. So moving on is held back, but to be set apart. So my baptism, normally, I'm sure your parents know, baptism is normally held in the first 6 months, the child. So mine, I'm 2 years old because of all the issues and having the cast, and because of, I had the plaster for over 2 years. So my baptism was when I was 2. And the interesting fact is, as a child, I felt like just another reminder that I wasn't on the same timeline as everyone else. So I already knew I'm already 2, my baptism time is not delayed. So every time I'm thinking, I'm not on the same timeline like everyone else. So I'm abnormal, I'm not worthy. But now I'm seeing it very differently. Because what looked like a delay was actually God preparing me for a deeper story. One of grace, growth, and greater purpose. Moving on that's my mom, and I have a story to share. So as a child, imagine this, you're sleeping, through the night, your bed is wet. So what do you normally think? You peed in your sleep. That was my normal, understanding of when my bed was always wet when I woke up. But then, at night, I think I was like 3 years old, around, I felt someone pulling my leg, and that was my mom in tears. So she was the one who was praying every night for her child and holding on to my feet. And some battles are won while we sleep because someone is praying when we can't. And the prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. So I would say my mother was very instrumental from childhood, this prayer and being that, making sure that every time that you make time for God. And that has followed me through my life. Even when I was going in engineering days, there was no church, but I saw how God worked through me to actually start you could say, small satellite service at our university. And always, through her prayers, I'm connected with God. And that is why I feel that you need someone praying for you. Even though you feel that your prayer life is not strong enough, but there's someone who's praying for you. And every time Cheryl sees my driving on the roads, she'll say, you have your prayers of your mom. This is why you're standing here. Sometimes the crazy stuff I do in life, just because of mommy's prayers. So moving on is the shift. Scars don't mean you're broken, they mean healing is underway. Moving on to the next one is the shift. So when God whispered. So this verse has been very instrumental in my life. 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Because I was trying to connect my story to the verses that connects to me. Because there's no point reading about strength. Because that's not me. No, that's not the one who can stand in front of everyone and talk. But in weakness, my power is made. How? Because His grace is sufficient for me. So that moment shifted everything, right? So I stopped asking to fix my limp. Because I was limping. I'm trying to act as if I'm normal. But I stopped. My prayer life changed. My prayer life changed to, rather than asking God to fix my limp, I started asking Him to use my limp. How can you use my limp for Him? And I realized I wasn't weak. I was wired for impact. What I thought was a liability became a launchpad for empathy, testimony, and calling. Moving to the next slide is from blessed to burden for purpose. So now, you can imagine 5-year-old, I've had this operation, I have this braces, but now I'm slowly starting to walk without the braces. So every time I go back to India, imagine when you go in the railways or in Bombay, because we didn't have Bahrain direct Kochi and all, so we have to go to Bombay. So when we go to Bombay, you see these kind of beggars in the road, and then my mom will point out, that child has your same problem. The only difference was you had parents who could afford it. So now I'm here, I can go put up my collar and say, see, I've got parents who could afford it, so I'm better than you. Or have that burden for purpose. But then, so always I thought I was lucky. I was just lucky. But then God flipped the script. So He asked me, how can you live a purposeful life and impact for them? So every time, as a child, my mom, because I don't remember, my mom tells me that you have a heart for the underprivileged. Every time they were everybody will be having food in the meeting, our table, but I used to pack a lunchbox and go sit with the workers. I don't know why. So I know God was preparing me for more. Healing wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a mission. So every healing that you go through, it is the beginning of a mission. Moving to the next slide is the 3 circles that changed my life. We go through each circles. Next slide, yes. So that unlocked my confidence, healing, and calling. So first is faith. We'll just go back to the previous slide. Thank you. So faith. Who is God in my story? Understanding what is the role of God in my story. Second is identity. Who am I really? Who am I? Who has God created Jyoti to be? Who has God created Shirl to be? Carol to be? Subhash to be? And purpose. What was I made to do? So you need to know these 3 if you ask me, in your life, if you find these 3 things, you have actually know what your purpose is. Because you've been created. You are a masterpiece. Who's created you? God's created you, and He's got the manual. And we need to ask Him. So moving on to the next slide is all about faith, knowing the source. So I moved from God, fix me, to God, use me. And like I said, church and prayer life has been very instrumental. My mom, till date, wants me to become an Achan. I keep kidding her, I've done what you wanted. But till date, her only prayer is not how much money I make, how much all that. She only prayer is, Joby, need a good Christian life. Be a good citizen. And that is the only prayer that she has for me. So I call myself a marketplace pastor. Because I was in corporate life. From corporate, I moved to a non-for-profit Christian radio station, which you all know. So making that jump is not normal. And especially, I'm 41 now, 10 years ago. So I was 31. Imagine, I could have joined any MNC. I was already working for SAS, which is into business intelligence and analytics. But I made that jump because everyone can tithe through their money. But how do you tithe? Through your time. So that's what I did. I said, God, you know what, I can come back 10 years later. They'll still need me, I can still do my job. But then He asked me, Joby, are you going to give your second best? Or are you going to give me your best? He's given me His, I'm standing because of it. So I had no, and till date I still don't know. How am I still there? Right? Sometimes I just pinch myself the opportunities that I'm given. But it is about knowing your source. Because He wanted me closer to Him. He knew if I go as a sales guy, if you go to any big MNCs, you're going further away from Him. But He wanted to bring me as close as possible. Even Cheryl says, Julie, you have not stayed more than a company for more than 2 years. And now you're here for 10 years. Unbelievable. Because I'm a person, I'm a risk taker. Keep jumping. Even in a place, we've moved more than Achamai. Got married in Chennai, moved to Gurgaon, then to Bombay, then to Australia. So we always kept moving. But knowing the source and connecting ourselves to the source. So faith isn't about how strong you feel. It's about who you lean on when you're not. Moving to the second point of identity. Knowing who you are. So the world said, Joby, you're too slow. The world said, Joby, you're not enough. The world said, Joby, you're not worthy. How can you even stand and deliver? How can you even stand? First of all, forget about standing, giving a speech to people. You can't even stand, is what I've kept repeatedly hearing myself and from the world. But then God said, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. From Psalms 139:14. He said, Joby, you're not the limp. You're not the praise. Because you are my masterpiece. So when your identity is rooted in Christ, your confidence can't be stolen. No one can take your confidence. So because you need to know who are you of? If you know, and if you know you're the son of a king, who can bring you down? And that's why sometimes, because I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, when people come to me, especially of our community, come to us and say, I feel inferior to this community here. And I'm like, man, you're more educated than them, you're more experienced than them, still you feel inferior because of our culture. How much of, I would say, historical abolishment has happened so that we always feel inferior. Once you know who you are of, I think it's a different game altogether. So that is where our identity is rooted in Christ and our confidence can't be stolen. Moving on to our next one is purpose. Knowing why you're here. So your pain is not pointless. God never wastes pain. The very thing I begged God to remove is now the reason hearts open when I speak. Because I want to go there and share my story. Because everyone here has a story. Everyone can see the glory. But behind every glory there is a story. Because at this stage I coach, like I said, leaders, mentors, youth, I build teams. So not despite the limp, but because of it. So now that is my strength. So when you embrace pain, you discover your platform. Moving on to the next slide is the transformation. Turning the limp into legacy. Today, I don't walk to prove I'm perfect. I walk to remind others. So you don't need to be flawless to lead. Your scars are someone else's survival guide. Your scars are someone else's survival guide. So go and share that story. So because of my limp, I learned to see people. Because of my pain, I can sit with someone in theirs. And because of my story, I help others rise in theirs. So I tell young people, the reason why I'm so passionate about the young people is, it's easier to fix, or it's easier to build children than to fix broken men. I'll repeat. It's easier to build children than to fix broken men. Hence, I'm so passionate about young people. And I tell them, you're not broken, you're being built. So once I struggled to walk physically, but now I'm helping others walk spiritually into calling, confidence, and in Christ. So God just didn't heal me, He gave me a mission. Moving on to the next slide. You can see if you're part of the photo there. So takeaway, it's your turn. So my message to every parent, every family here, you may feel behind. You may feel unseen. You may be waiting to feel whole before you leave. But I want you to know, don't curse the limp. Because that may be exactly where God is preparing your destiny. God just doesn't heal to make us whole. He heals us to to make us guides for others. I'll repeat. God doesn't just heal to make us whole. He heals us to make us guides for others. So if I could walk again in faith, identity, and purpose, so can you. So you're not late, you're being led. And final slide. This verse, the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. The sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. So you may have scars, you may be slow, but you are still called. Let God use every scar, every limp, every broken step, because He's just not making you walk again. He's sending you with a message. Thank you.